Jaylen Brown or Luka Doncic. They have spectacular seasons.
They really are.
Good luck to the Bucks.
I'm going to let you introduce our
our two-time Emmy Award-winning Warriors Insider, Hall of Famer here at NBC Sports Bay Area. Monty Poole. Monty, Rick was a bad man.
Man, Rick Barry was, there's been a lot of social media talk about, you might have seen it lately about, somebody wanting to use the term Iceman. Everybody's like, he never heard of George Gervin? People don't know who George Gervin, people don't know who Rick Barry is. If you're a Warriors fan, know your history. I mean, this guy was Steph before Steph. I'm not saying that he's as good as Steph. He didn't change the game, but Rick Barry was an MVP player. Hall of Famer, automatic Hall of Famer. And that 75 championship does not happen, didn't even come close without him. So he was the franchise's best player, along with Wilt Chamberlain, before Steph came along.
Okay. So you said he was that good. MVP type player. 30 plus points a game. All right. Underhand free throws, you said? 90% from the free throw line.
That's what I mean.
One of the guys who invented positionless basketball. He was touted for his versatility, his ability to score. Winning, won a championship here with the Warriors in '75. Happy birthday, Rick, and for everything that you've done for the game. If you watch that documentary, you also understand how there's different things, and the things that we get used to today, players going from team to team, negotiating their salaries, well, that's also thanks to Rick Barry. So thank you for that, too.
But the Oakland Oaks, they won a championship, even though he got hurt during the season. They ended up winning the championship in the ABA.
I haven't gotten that far in the documentary yet.
Come on. You've been stuck on episode 1 for a month. You're part of those kids, Fezzi. These young punks out here disrespecting NBA history.
So I'm one of the punks? Dang,
one of those young punks who say.
Here's the thing I say about this. That is so good that I have to Google every player in the. It's a lot of history.
How many episodes?
4 episodes, KB.
Okay.
Awesome.
Maybe you got to do it. Warriors head coach Steve Kerr said Vice President of Player Health and Performance Rick Celebrity texted him today. So from him that Steph Curry had a good session as he rehabs his runner's knee.
That's good news.
That is good news. That's from our buddy Sam Gordon of the San Francisco Chronicle. But 5 years ago today, as we go vintage NBA, Steph Curry returned.
James Wiseman.
5-game absence. They bruised tailbone. And he went crazy against Chicago. 6 threes, 32 points as the Dubs snapped a 4-game losing streak. Look at that. It was weird times there.
This is long hair Steph, too.
Long hair Steph, no fans
5
in the
years
crowd. Pandemic. Scouts spaced out. Fans watching on the video board on their laptops.
Yo, Bonte, you say this is 5 years ago, but it's crazy because Steph is moving just as good, if not better, now. Which is kind of scary for the opposing defenses and everybody who's they're watching to see if Steph comes back, what is this team going to look like? I thought the Warriors looked good in the first half tonight. I thought they showed some fight. They brought that mentality from the winning streak, the confidence. Adding Steph to this roster, it just makes everybody that much more dangerous. It makes Kristaps Porzingis more dangerous. It makes De'Anthony Melton. Maybe that's his problem. Maybe he's missing that distraction. Melton's not getting the most pressure from the top defenders of the other team. Now he's slotted to the second, third best defender on the team. And so maybe he can get off that way. There's so many things that Steph does for this team. I think we're all seeing it now over the last 25-plus games.
Yeah, I mean, Draymond Green misses Steph as his longtime partner.
Very much.
Prajemski misses Steph because, he makes the job easier. But nobody misses him more than Melton does. I mean, and Steph has been saying that, hey, that's the guy that I want to be my backcourt partner. We're good at this. And he's a two-way player. He can make plays on both ends. And when Steph goes down, you already lost Jimmy, you lost Steph. Who's supposed to pick up the scoring slack? People looking at Melt like, okay, you're kind of a veteran here. You're ahead of Pods, you're ahead of Gee, all these guys. We need you to kind of pick it up. And his body is kind of saying, there are some nights when I got it and some nights when I don't have it. And lately, it's been a lot of nights when he doesn't have it.
Yeah, these guys over the past 2 months, all of them are wearing down a little bit. That's natural when you go from taking the bench into the starting lineup, relentless. Because these are the guys who are left, they don't get nights off. These are the guys we talk about as young legs, fresh legs, that kind of stuff. They can take it, they want the opportunity. And while that's...
My first one would be that defense is 50% of the game, and that it is undervalued so far in the MVP race. Because I believe I'm the most impactful player defensively in the league.
So that was Victor Wembanyama earlier this week, and then Wemby backed up his talk by dominating yet again last night, finished with 19 points, 15 rebounds, and a ridiculous 7 blocks in the Spurs' 123-98 win over the Grizzlies. Now, people around the league took notice of his comments earlier in the week, including Warriors forward Draymond Green. Listen to him. An indictment on the game. Does Draymond have a point when he says that? Jay Will, I see you shaking your head. What do you think?
No, it's not an indictment on the game. That's Draymond's indictment on media and the way the game is covered. And that's what he really means to say here. Because basketball people, like the people on this show, when Wendy or Stephen A. or I talk about Wemby, we're having conversations about him maybe being the most dominant player in the history of the game. And it always starts with what he does on the defensive end, that he blocks out the sun, or every shot that comes towards the rim, he can contest or deflect or change or alter shots around the rim. We're talking about him in a historical context with Shaq in the way, even though Shaq wasn't as defensively minded as he was, like dominance on the defensive end. So to me, this has always been, whether it's Draymond with new media, whether it's Draymond and the way the game is covered. And it's such a large array of people that cover this game. I don't know why Draymond only focuses on those people that only focus on offense. Yes, offense sells. Yes, offense makes the game faster. Yeah, we're going to talk about, why do we love Cade Cunningham? Because he defends on both sides of the floor. He D's up and he tries to give you buckets. Why do we love Jaylen Brown? Because he tried to strap up SGA last night in the fourth quarter, and he's a two-way player. Why the players that we're talking about in the MVP conversation are playing on both sides of the floor, and it's meaningful to them in the way their DNA is built. So I think it's an indictment on media, not on the game of basketball.
Wendy, what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. This is, again, another straw man argument.
What if this little Stephen Curry update is actually the moment Warriors fans look back on and say, that's when the energy started to change? Because that's how this feels. Not loud, not flashy, not one of those blockbuster headlines with a trade machine and fake insiders screaming into a camera. No, this one hits different. Steve Kerr saying Rick Celebrini texted him that Steph had a good rehab session with that runner's knee? Yeah, that's the kind of update that makes Dub Nation sit up immediately. Because after all these games without him, after all the lineup chaos, all the survival mode, all the just hang on until Steph gets back talk, now it finally feels like the return is not just hope, it's a path, a real path. The San Francisco Chronicle reported that Kerr called it a positive step, while Reuters noted the Warriors' next anticipated step for Curry is a live 5-on-5 scrimmage in the coming days. That is not random. That is movement. That is the machine starting to turn again. And let's be honest, Warriors fans know exactly why one good Steph update can shake the whole mood of the season, because over these past 25 games or so, Golden State has had to play basketball with the volume turned down. They've had to create offense the hard way. Every drive, every extra pass, every late clock possession, every forced shot against a loaded defense. You can feel the missing gravity. You can feel the missing fear. Steph does not just score, man. He distorts reality for defenses. The broadcast nailed this part. Add Steph back to this roster, and suddenly everybody gets more dangerous. Kristaps Porzingis gets easier catches and more room to work. DeAnthony Melton gets weaker defenders and cleaner lanes. Podziemski gets simpler reads. Draymond gets his favorite partner back in the chess match. That's the magic of Steph Curry. He doesn't just raise the ceiling, he cleans up everybody else's life. And now think about the timing. This is where it gets exciting. The Warriors just beat Washington 131-126 for their third straight win, their first 3-game streak in nearly 2 months. Reuters said that win pulled Golden State to 36-38 and within half a game of 9th place in the West after Portland lost. So this isn't a dead team waiting for a miracle. No. This is a team surviving long enough for the miracle to matter. Porzingis has been giving them real offensive structure. Guy Santos is playing with real confidence. Pods is doing a little bit of everything. They are not whole, but they are alive, and that changes everything. Because if Steph comes back to a group that already found some rhythm, some belief, and some answers, then his return doesn't have to be rescue mode. It can be ignition mode. That's why I loved the other part of that TV segment too. They said Steph looks like he's moving just as well, maybe even better than in that old comeback clip they were showing. Now, sure, we've got to be careful, because a nice workout is not the same as NBA game speed. I'm not pretending one rehab session means he's dropping 35 tomorrow night. But come on, for Warriors fans, even hearing that kind of language matters. It brings oxygen back into the room. It brings imagination back into the room. It makes you start asking the real fun question again. If Steph comes back and looks like Steph, what does this team actually become? Haha, that's the question that makes the heart start beating a little faster. And maybe the sneaky biggest winner here is Melton. The broadcast made that point, and I think they were dead on. Nobody may miss Steph more than DeAnthony Melton, because without Steph and without Jimmy, too much of the creation burden landed on him. Too much responsibility, too much defensive attention, too many nights where the body and rhythm just weren't there. Put Steph back, and suddenly Melton gets to breathe. He gets the second or third defender instead of the top problem solver. He gets chaos in front of him instead of pressure on top of him. That matters. The same goes for Porzingis. You think he's dangerous now? Imagine him with the defense already stretched to the breaking point before he even touches it. Haha, that's when things get nasty for the other team. So here's why I'm ending this on a favorable Warriors note. The team did the hardest thing already. It stayed afloat. It survived the darkest stretch of the Steph absence long enough for good news to actually mean something. That is huge, because a positive rehab update only matters if the season still has pulse, and the Warriors kept that pulse alive with these recent wins. Now they just need the next step, the scrimmage, the reevaluation, the final clearance, the moment when number 30 goes from watching to warping games again. Yeah, and if that moment is close, then the rest of the West better pay attention. Tell me what you think in the comments. When Steph returns, who gets the biggest boost? Porzingis, Melton, Pods, or Draymond? Hit like, subscribe, and stay locked in with Dub Nation, because this might be the update that starts the real turn.